Hello. Oh, okay. Yes.
Hi again, welcome. Let me get my podcast voice on. Hi, welcome back to another somewhat echoey episode of the Dad Club Japan podcast. And today I am in the southern ward of Fukuoka City in a neighborhood called Nagazumi. You can kind of hear the cars outside. It's a nice sunny day. And today I'm recording in the main classroom of the newly opened, well, by the time you hear this, it will have been opened, Sunshine English School in Fukuoka. And I'm here to chat with Stephen about how he helps his bicultural children maintain their less used side of their dual identities. Also, I'm here to first and foremost congratulate Stephen and his wife on the opening of the new school. So congratulations, Stephen, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's good to be here, and thanks for coming today. I appreciate your setting this all up. It looks pretty complex, and
It's your new school.
Yeah.
And we're here to talk about how you help your own kids maintain their dual identities. And because we're here in Japan, and the reason why I wanted to talk about this today is because recently I've been having my own issues with my older son who studied, English at a school we both know well.
Yeah.
He was a teacher there. For 6 years, he studied English, and then he every day, for like 4 or 5 hours a day, and it was great. And then as soon as he got into elementary school, 6 months later, his Japanese has outpaced his English.
Right.
So, and now it's a struggle to get him to engage in English. I mean, he uses it, and he's naturally fine with it.
Yeah.
It's no problem, but he just doesn't enjoy reading English as much anymore. And the Japanese side of his identity is taken over.
Yeah.
And so here we are, we're in Japan, we're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year pretty much. And how do we help our kids engage with their other side, in your case, your British side, when they're not having as much interaction with English-speaking people and they're going to a Japanese school. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, and to see how you deal with this. Your son's a little bit older, but a few years. He's like 10 now-ish?
Yeah, he's 10 years old.
So you've had a few extra years to navigate, and this kind of dilemma, I guess. So at any rate, that's what I wanted to talk about today. And but before that, maybe you could introduce yourself a little bit.
Sure.
For the listeners. Thanks.
I'm Steve. I'm British. I came to Japan about 10 years ago. My wife wanted to come back to Japan. Right now, I'm 38 years old. As soon as I came, I started to work as an English teacher, and I've been working as an English teacher ever since. Basically, on the side, I was doing electronics, as you're aware, and also selling various Japanese goods and stuff. So I've had a bit of a mix of stuff here, and it's been a great journey. So far. So that's me, I guess.
Sure. Let me ask you a weird question. Introduction-wise,
Sure.
How would your wife describe you?
Yeah, how would my wife describe me? Probably not air-friendly, is it? But how would you describe me? I don't really. Funny, maybe challenging to talk to sometimes. Confusing, I would say. Friendly. wily, although she probably doesn't know the word, but I imagine she knows the Japanese version of the word.
Like the coyote.
Right, like exactly like the coyote, right.
Like the tricks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like when you come to Japan, you kind of have to be wily, right, to get around to get around everything, right, to survive. So kind of like it's quite an important thing to develop. If you're moving from country to country, you have to be absolutely wily, not cunning, but wily. Definitely, you have to be
persistent, I guess.
Persistent, yeah,
Persistent
yeah,
and,
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a good trait to have, I guess, when you're in another country. Obviously, you know.
Yeah.
Be able to navigate all the cultural barriers that we encounter daily.
Right.
What kind of barriers have you encountered recently? I mean, you
barriers.
This school, I imagine, hasn't been an easy go of it, or maybe it has.
Right. So, I don't have a great deal of historical context when it comes to the social progression of Japan. I came 10 years ago. They had like full property rights for foreign people, but I heard 15 to 20 years ago there was no a foreign person wasn't allowed to own a house in Japan or something like that. So I can't imagine like that period until now. So I've got no context to compare really. So for me personally, I didn't like liaise in Japanese with any of the people that helped us get this place. My wife did like 95% of it. I had to give some input, but it's complex information that had to be exchanged. But it was fairly smooth. The same with our mortgage as well. Getting our mortgage for our house, it was fairly smooth. It almost felt like whoever's in charge. Like I think there's a certain amount of government involvement in trying to give people mortgages for the housing market and trying to promote new businesses as well, maybe, especially during Corona. We were told by someone that it's easier to get financial assistance during COVID right now. So if you wanted to start up a business, it's the perfect time. And they helped us with everything, so it was pretty helpful.
The first I've heard of it. I guess it's not a surprise, you know, anything to stimulate the economy in this challenging time. But it's nice to hear that, though, for sure.
Yeah, it's surprising. Yeah, but I guess, yeah, it is surprising, but it kind of it helped us, and it's better than not doing anything, I guess. Like if you try to stimulate something, you know, something good might happen. I think there's some dangerous businesses, but I think like schools aren't really a dangerous business. It's not like a luxury good. It's an essential service, so it's kind of fairly safe for them to invest, generally speaking.
Right. So, that's very interesting. You mentioned that about your wife doing 95% of the paperwork, I guess, so to speak. I mean, I'm no stranger to having my wife do lots of the paperwork for everything, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems to be a pretty common narrative. Is that true for you? Most of the time, your wife takes care of that side of things?
Yeah, apart from the application forms for loans and stuff, I'm the name on the application form, so I have to write the address in kanji. So I've probably written the Japanese address maybe, I don't know, 50 times, I would say, over the past 5 years. So it's been quite good practice, right? Yeah. So apart from that, the small details and stuff, I mean, I can understand the main parts of everything. Basically, you know, I understand because I know why I'm there. I know what's happening. I can sort of follow the the body language, the feeling of everything, and parts of the language itself. But when it comes down to actual detail and them asking a question, a very specific question, it's just, it needs a specific answer, and I think that it's obviously quite dangerous. Even if Japanese is good, I think it's probably a little bit of a risk to answer certain questions when it comes to financial. If you're trying to get like a loan from a bank and you say the wrong thing, for example, like you could end up with the wrong amount of money deposited into your account or something. I'm sure it's not as funny as that, but something could go wrong, and it's not worth taking the risks, I suppose.
Sure. Yeah, everyone's got their strengths and weaknesses, and I think for us being foreigners here, Japanese paperwork is probably not our strength.
Yeah, right, yeah.
For most of us, the people that I know here, there's 2 or 3 foreigners I know that could handle the paperwork, but beyond that, the majority of us, I think, would probably struggle mightily. So, what kind of a father are you, in a nutshell?
Wow, I would say I'm not a strict father. I'm a friendly father, I'd say. Like, I kind of like to give my kids guidance rather than ultimatums, I don't want to say, you must do this or else, I want them to really think about and consider many different possibilities. I want them to think for themselves and learn from their own mistakes. So I would say I'm not a disciplinarian. So I'm going to say all the things that I'm not first, but I'm a friend to my kids. Like, I guess there's a fine line to walk between being a dad and a friend, because you can undermine your own authority sometimes when you're too much of a friend. So it's difficult, but I would say, I find that line hard to walk, I guess. But I make my kids laugh. I try to keep their spirits up. I try to teach them like life things, like ideas about life rather than math and reading. I mean, I read to my kids every day, and my daughter every day, because she's the one that screams for me, so I don't have a choice. She cries if I go to read to my son, so so I'm fairly dedicated to, giving them as much input as possible, like to creative sort of input, not like educational, regimented, structured learning at home, I just want them to be able to just relax with me and enjoy conversation, have fun, and use their imagination to think of things, how to solve problems maybe with their imagination rather than from learning. Like, this is how I was told, this is how to solve this situation. Like, I want them to really approach things themselves. I'm not sort of going to stand in their way. I don't try to protect them too much from getting hurt as well, so.
Do you have any kind of traditions or some way of helping to remind them that they have this other side of an identity that they can tap into?
I'm not too, so I can't define Britishness. I mean, maybe someone else can outside my culture, but for me it's just part of like the fabric of me, so I can't see it. The same way I don't know what my voice sounds like I don't know really, like I can't, it's hard to judge yourself, and that's like feels like a sort of, an immutable characteristic. Like, I don't know what my hair colour looks like to other people. I don't know what my Britishness is, I can't define it. So it's kind of like, I'm happy for my kids to grow up and sort of be unaware of Britishness, if it's something. When I came here, I kind of felt less British, I would say. I felt more like I don't even know if it's a cliche, but like I felt more worldly in a way. Like I'd left maybe some of that Britishness behind because I felt like it's just, you know, sheer happenstance that you're born in this country, and I could have been born anywhere.
Sure.
And I grew up, you know, in that culture, and I guess it's defined me in a certain way, but I couldn't define what is defined. So it's
okay. Well, that's a very interesting point. I mean, so it sort of sounds like for you making sure that they have some knowledge of like a dual identity, as it were. For you, maybe that's not such an important thing for your kids?
No, it's not. I would say it's not really that important. I want them to understand that they're not 100% Japanese,
Mm-hmm.
right? In the sense that their dad is not Japanese.
Mm.
So when Louis went to school in the first year, he got called Gaijin a couple of times, or Gaikokujin, and because he has freckles as well on his face, they said butsu butsu a couple of times. So he came back, and there was a little bit of self-loathing, you know, like he was upset because he'd been sort of singled out as like a Gaikokujin, if you like. So he started to question me a lot, and then question himself a lot, and I guess he became self-conscious, like literally became self-conscious in that first grade. So, yeah, in that respect, I mean, I never really, maybe before I was wanting to make more of a concerted effort to teach him about his British side. Yeah, after my sons sort of came back and he had that, you know, it did make me maybe reflect a little bit and think, it's less important to sort of prop up that other side of them, and it's better to just look after them as a whole human being in the situation that they're in, and just explain, I'm from a different culture. If they tell you, you know, oh, you're Gaikokujin, then just say, okay, you know, there's nothing I can do about that. That's just who I am, and you know, if you have a problem, it's your problem. It's hard to push any sort of alternative identity onto him at a young age, because he might get really confused about, oh, I'm British, maybe I'm not the same as them or whatever, where he should feel like he can work it out for himself, and then if he gets older, maybe he'll want to go to live in Texas, right, and be a cowboy, and he might end up finding somewhere that fits his way of thinking for his life. And I think that's kind of, yeah, I don't even know how to begin to, I'm sure there's some things that are sort of part of me that are British and my culture. I'll give that to him anyway, like naturally. So I don't know if I can like take aspects of Britishness and sort of pass them on to him. This would be, a bit. So yeah, I haven't really done that. Yeah.
It's interesting you should mention about making your kids confused, I guess. You know, at some point with the notion of another identity.
Right.
Rather than focusing on, you know, a separate identity or a double identity, rather just having them, you know, completely integrate into society as they are, as a whole.
Yeah.
And that comes back to another guest on the show, a friend, Greg, had mentioned in his research for his doctorate.
Yeah.
He had done some research into what factors helped people integrate into society better in Japan, and one thing he found was that, I hope I'm getting this right, but from what I remember from our conversation was that he found that like you said yourself, it can be confusing for especially young children when they're given this, given the notion of having two languages, and they withdraw inside, and some of them can be even more introverted, and it can have a detrimental effect on their development as a child. And what some kids prefer to do, or he discovered, was that they express themselves through more bodily movements rather than through speaking, I guess, and they communicate in that way. But you know, that's all fine and dandy as it is. For me, I really want my sons to be aware that, you know, there's a specific reason why they're different from everyone else, you know, and that I want to help them grow into that a little bit more, and I want to make sure that they don't lose that other sense of their identity. I'm hoping that my own kids can kind of embrace it. You know, you try to embrace whatever identities you have, and for them it's, you know, they're Canadian, Japanese, and I really want them to acknowledge and be aware and just realize that they have this whole other identity that they can tap into in the future or now, and I just don't want them to forget that. And so, I don't know, I guess I don't really have a question for you, but
it's good to have different views on things, right? That's why we have a conversation, right?
So I guess there goes my whole topic out the window.
The next question, have I murdered the next question?
Well, okay. Seems my topic was a bit of a bomb today. Oops.
No,
that's okay. I guess I should be more aware that obviously people have different perspectives, and I was hoping to get some insight into how you might help your kids with their second language. Okay, well, I'm coming back to the topic. I'm coming back to it. English. Yeah. Obviously, you opened up this English school here. Yeah. You want your children to engage in English, right? Yeah. So, what strategies do you have to help them enjoy English here? Because let's be honest, the Japanese school system really sucks the enjoyment out of learning English here.
I heard that from Chugakuse it kind of gets a bit like that, but the Shogako that Lee goes to, my son, he really enjoys it, and they get a lot of freedom, and he loves it, and he plays basketball like 4 days a week. But I heard they get them to knuckle down a bit in middle school.
Right, yeah, it becomes very test and result based, focused. And I've worked in junior high schools before, and I've seen just the enjoyment of English get sucked right out of kids because it's not a communicative approach. So while kids are young, you know, they're going to come here and they're going to learn some English. What do you have, like a strategy for your own children about how you want them to learn English? Or?
So I mean, I've read most of like Roald Dahl's books to my kids, and I'm going through Harry Potter with the movies and books as well at the moment, and C.S. Lewis as well. So what I would like them to do is have this real, be heavily influenced by, I mean that is British as well, but if they have this ability to think creatively and use their imagination well, I think they can get through these really like testing times, like, you know, when they're doing the tests and stuff like that, they can sort of maybe escape it a little bit more than the other kids here that have been sort of, they haven't been given a chance. I mean, my take on it, I don't know every Japanese parent or Japanese family, but I feel like some of the kids don't get a chance to make any decisions for themselves at all, ever. And then they get through the school system, and then they end up as an adult that's highly qualified, highly intelligent, but has no idea how to choose things for themselves, has no idea how to overcome an issue, like a real solid, difficult problem, like a serious crimes being committed against them, or they have serious emotional problems with a partner or something like that, or they're having like hard times at work, or the real world's hit them basically, and they've come out of this system where they've been told what to do each and every time, and they had to learn this way to pass this test, and then they got to the end of it. You know, and that's why I think like literature's good to escape mentally, and also it gives them sort of they're like real life situations, and they're always playing in your head, and those kids, they can always reflect back onto those to get some. I'm not saying Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is going to give my kids the edge in school, but it will give them some sort of escape to be able to use their imagination. That's my hope anyway. I don't know.
Well, I think it's going to be awesome. I mean, you're a great guy yourself, very personable, very friendly. You know, kids love you, and it's a bright, spacious, nice sounding school here. So I wish you the best of luck.
Cheers, thank you.
I'm sure it's going to do great. And speaking of YouTube, come back to the podcast, you know.
Yeah.
This is going to be a first attempt at throwing up a video of our conversation on YouTube. Obviously, you'll be able to find the podcast there, and I hope you'll have a listen to it when it's all finished.
Yeah, I will, yeah.
You and the other 32 listeners.
Yeah. That'll be good.
But yeah, so thanks for playing along today.
Oh, no, thank you for coming.
Really wish you the most best success here in your school, and look forward to coming back and see how it's doing in the future.
Yeah, you're welcome back anytime. Thank you.
So again, thanks Stephen for hanging out and talking, and so you listeners out there, you can find this Dad Club Japan podcast on any of the listening platforms that you prefer, probably, and maybe up on YouTube later on, and more Dad Club Japan podcast content on Twitter and Instagram. So thanks for listening again, everybody, and I hope you've enjoyed hearing Steve and I talk, and we will call it a day here. Thanks very much again,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
There it is.